From Studio 15 in Lafayette, this is News 15 at 9.
Good evening, I'm Toy Thornton. Thanks for joining us for News 15 focused on family and the community at 9. It's no secret that there's been tension between police and the community across the country in recent years, but Lafayette Police Department says that's not going to work for them. Officers joined with LPD's community relations team and Gethsemane Church of God in Christ for yet another community walk, this time in the Macomb neighborhood. This is a continuation of a series of community walks that Chief Aguilar says won't stop until they cover the entire city. An active scene in Jeanerette today. A suspect is arrested after a 3-hour standoff with police in Jeanerette. Police say officers were arresting 33-year-old Troy Penns for illegally discharging a weapon in the city when he took off in his car and sent police on a car chase that ultimately led to a home on Gilead Street. Penns allegedly barricaded himself in this home for 3 hours. Police requested backup from the Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office as well as the SWAT team and were able to arrest Penns. Iberia Parish President Larry Richard has made his decision about 2 controversial mobile home ordinances in Iberia. Richard approved one of the ordinances that requires mobile home park owners to provide their own trash pickup services. The other ordinances requires developers to have their properties rezoned before developing a mobile park. Richard did not approve nor veto the ordinance, but he has requested that the council and commission go back and change the language of the ordinance. For the full breakdown of Richard's response, head to our website, KDN.com. Lawmakers are back at the Capitol for the 2017 Louisiana legislative session. This year, lawmakers plan to tackle a number of issues. News 15 Philip Boudreau is in Baton Rouge. Phil, what happened? Thank you very much, Scott. In Crime Watch tonight in Calcasieu Parish, a Lake Charles teacher is arrested for allegedly touching a male student inappropriately. The male student told detectives Raymond Johnson touched him on numerous occasions in May of 2015 when they were alone in the classroom. After further investigation, Johnson was arrested Friday for indecent behavior with a juvenile, but he was released on bond later that same day. Also in Calcasieu Parish, a DeQuincy man is arrested for sexually assaulting a family member. Charles Fontenot allegedly had sex with the juvenile for approximately 7 to 8 years on several occasions. Fontenot was arrested on a charge of aggravated crime against nature and has a bond set at $750,000. A 4-year-old is recovering after being beat with a belt. Detectives arrested 31-year-old Lakeith Morrow for cruelty to a juvenile after he admitted to spanking the child with a belt. The child received marks and bruising on the stomach, back, buttocks, legs, genitals, and face. Morrow was booked into the Calcasieu Correctional Center. In Calcasieu Parish also, a woman is arrested for theft from an employer. Joella Moss is accused of stealing money from a local business in Lake Charles where she worked as a bookkeeper. Discrepancies were shown in the bookkeeping and Moss admitted to stealing a large amount of money during questioning. She was arrested and booked into the Calcasieu Correctional Center and charged with theft over $25,000. She was released the next day on a $25,000 bond. A DeQuincy man is now behind bars after alleged sexual contact with an 11-year-old. 45-year-old Leon Price Jr. is accused of having inappropriate sexual contact with a family acquaintance. The victim says the activity took place back in September of 2016. Price was located in Beauregard Parish and transported to the Calcasieu Correctional Center on first-degree rape. The investigation is ongoing and more charges are possible. In the community tonight, Louisiana State Police Troop I is welcoming 6 new troopers to its family. The troopers endured 22 weeks of strenuous academic and physical fitness training. A total of 5 awards are given out to each academy class. 3 of those awards were earned by the new troopers assigned to Troop I. The Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed report was debuted last week by United Way. One of our parishes even ranks in the top 3 for financial hardships. Compared to Louisiana, St. Landry Parish is 7 percentage points above the state average, with 29% of households making just enough money to live paycheck to paycheck. Officials say that these ALICE individuals are one crisis away from poverty, and St. Landry's rural landscape is a big factor in the parish's high percentage. With United Way say this report brings light to an important issue, and now we can start to look for policies and programs to help those ALICE individuals. All right, coming up, a school shooting leaves 3 dead in Southern California. Details on the suspect and victims. That's coming up. And 2 horrific bombings at Christian churches in Egypt sparks a state of emergency. Plus, Scott. Welcome back. In national news tonight, an apparent murder-suicide at an elementary school in California leaves 2 people dead and several students injured. San Bernardino police saying 2 adults have died after a gunman opened fire inside a classroom at North Park School in San Bernardino. Among the injured, at least 2 students who were reportedly airlifted to a local hospital. Their condition is unknown. Police say the shooter is dead. The incident may be connected to a domestic dispute. One of the victims of the attack is a teacher who police believe may have known the gunman. The identities of the victim are also still not known. This story is developing. Convicted Charleston church shooter Dylan Roof pleading guilty to state murder charges today.
You represent Mr. Roof, Mr. Roof, is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right, and who else?
As part of a deal with prosecutors in exchange for a life prison sentence, 23-year-old Dylan Roof entering the guilty plea on all state counts against him, including 9 murder counts. The move sparing the victims' families from a second trial, and Roof will now await his federal execution. He was formally sentenced to death in January, convicted on 33 federal charges, including hate crimes and obstruction of religion last month. Roof is the first person in U.S. history to be sentenced to death in a federal hate crimes trial. Lieutenant Governor Kay Ivey is now the new governor of the state of Alabama. Ivey was sworn in as Alabama's 54th governor this evening after Governor Robert Bentley resigned in the face of scandal. Governor Bentley has been on the defense since March 2016 when the former state auditor publicly accused him of using state funds to hide an affair with an advisor. Bentley admitted to making inappropriate comments to his top aide, Rebecca Mason, but denied having a physical affair with her, and he previously refused to resign. The 72-year-old Alabama native is the second woman to ever hold the position of governor in Alabama. Federal Judge Neil Gorsuch becomes the newest Supreme Court justice, being sworn in at the White House this morning following a contentious confirmation in the Senate. Associate Justice Anthony Kennedy administered the oath, a historic occasion, according to President Trump. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson visits a monument in Italy today dedicated to hundreds of Italians who were murdered by Nazis during World War II. Tillerson, alongside the Italian foreign minister and EU foreign policy chief, to remember the 560 Italian villagers who died at the hands of the Nazis in the town. The town is 31 miles from where foreign ministers from the Group of Seven, or G7, are gathered to meet to discuss the chemical attack in Syria and the U.S. response, with participants aiming to pressure Russia to stop its support for Syrian President Bashar Assad. The death toll continues to rise in Egypt after 2 horrific bombings at Christian churches there. The Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the attacks, and they come just days after a U.S. strike on a Syrian airbase. Fox News correspondent Doug Luzader has a story from Washington. That was Fox News correspondent Doug Luzader reporting. All right, now let's hear to Scott. He's going to tell us about that weather. Scott, how's it looking out there?
Yeah, Toy, still.
Welcome back. Tax season is winding down, and for all you last-minute filers, make sure you're not missing any crucial deductions. Here's Fox Business Network's Jerry Willis. They can use irs.gov to find fast answers to tax questions, use free online tools, and find key tax forms and publications. To help with the high demand, the IRS has extended its toll-free telephone hours on Saturday, April 8th and Saturday, April 15th to 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Taxpayers wanting in-person help from the IRS need to make an appointment before visiting an IRS Taxpayer Assistance Center. If you've shopped at GameStop anytime since September, you may want to check your credit card account. GameStop has confirmed it's looking into a possible data breach that comprised customers' credit cards used between September and February. Web security blog Krebs on security report card numbers, expiration dates, addresses, and 3-digit security codes are among the information that was stolen, and that it showed up for sale on the internet. GameStop isn't providing many details and has not said how many customers may be affected. Adidas plans to sell 100,000 sneakers made with 3D printed soles in the coming year. The German sportswear giant has partnered with Silicon Valley, starting up Carbon to produce the shoe it calls the Futurecraft 4D. 300 pairs are being released this month to family and friends, and about 5,000 will be available later this year. Adidas says there will be more than 100,000 pairs by the end of 2018. It hasn't unveiled the shoe's price yet. TripAdvisor coming out with their annual list of the top airlines, both domestic and international. Top billing for midsize and low-cost North American carriers goes to JetBlue, followed by Alaska Airlines, Southwest, Virgin America, and WestJet. As for the top airlines in the world, Emirates Airlines won the top spot. A second place went to Singapore Airlines. Brazil-based Azul came in third, and the Traveler's Choice Award was given out for the first time this year to Delta Airlines. If you're flying Delta anytime soon, you may want to check the schedule. And is the happiest place on earth being taken over by robots? Fox Business Network's Hillary Vaughn has these stories and more in today's Fox Business Briefs. Welcome back. I'm Toy Thornton. Thanks for joining us for News 15, focused on family and the community at 9. It's no secret that there's been tension between police and the community across the country in recent years. Lafayette Police Department, however, says that's not going to work for them. Officers joined with LPD's community relations team and Gethsemane Church of God in Christ for yet another community walk, this time in the Macomb neighborhood. Police combed the neighborhood on foot, shaking hands and getting to know the people of the community. They say the goal is to reassure residents that they're here to protect and serve. This is the continuation of a series of community walks that Chief Aguillard says won't stop until they cover the entire city. An active scene in Jeanerette today. A suspect is arrested after a 3-hour standoff with police in Jeanerette. Police say officers were arresting 33-year-old Troy Penns for illegally discharging a weapon in the city when he took off in his car and sent police on car chase that ultimately led to a home on Gilead Street. Penns allegedly barricaded himself in this home for 3 hours. Police requested backup from the Liberia Parish Sheriff's Office as well as a SWAT team and were able to arrest Penns. All right, now let's head to Scott with the first look at your forecast. Scott, how's it looking out there? All right, thank you very much, Scott. According to a recent study, many families in St. Landry Parish are only one crisis away from poverty. The United Way releasing its Alice report. Our Taylor Trichet looks into what this means for local families. Huffman says now they can start looking into what programs need to be provided and what policies need to be created or addressed in order to help those categorized as Alice. Louisiana legislative session got underway in Baton Rouge today. Governor John Bel Edwards admits he and lawmakers have their work cut out for them, reaching a consensus on the state's budget. The Democratic governor is so far not garnering much support for his proposed rewritten tax laws aimed at filling in budget gaps. The governor touted Medicaid expansion, flooding recovery, and vowed to avoid the gridlock, the likes of which he says plague Capitol Hill, but not before recognizing special guests, including a student who risked his life to help a victim of domestic violence and wildlife officer Tyler Wheeler, who was shot in the head during a traffic stop.
But we've got to have a serious conversation about how to move this state forward, and then we must act. What I cannot respect is voting no on everything without offering your own proposal.
Representative Joseph.
The House and the Senate will reconvene tomorrow to begin debating criminal justice and tax reform. The session will continue until June 8th. The Louisiana House has 2 new members, one of which is from District 42, right here in Acadiana. Newly elected Representative John Stefanski takes over the seat previously represented by Jack Montesette. Montesette, a Democrat, left when Governor John Bel Edwards appointed him as Secretary of the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. Stefanski is a lawyer and political newcomer. There is now 1 House seat vacant, along with a seat in the state Senate. Special elections are planned to determine those who will fill those seats. Binge watching your favorite shows online might end up costing you more in Louisiana. As the state deals with a massive budget shortfall, lawmakers get creative with revenue ideas. Ryan Knockin reports. The employer of a bus driver involved in a fatal I-10 crash back in August is filing for bankruptcy. According to the New Orleans advocate Wallace Rush, Schmidt Incorporated, a disaster restoration provider, voluntarily filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection after a rash of lawsuits related to the crash that killed 3 and injured dozens. The company, doing business as AM Party Bus, listed less than $1.7 million in assets and more than $2.7 million in liabilities. The bus was carrying relief workers from New Orleans to Baton Rouge to assist with historic August floods. The driver, Dennis Amaya, who was unlicensed and undocumented, is still waiting to be tried on criminal charges. Next, we'll take a look at your health, showing man's best friend may help keep your family healthy in more ways than one. Man's best friend may help keep your family healthy in more ways than one. Fox News correspondent Laura Ingo has the story and more in Your Health. Exercising on an empty stomach may be better for your health in the long term. Researchers looked at the effects of eating versus fasting on how the genes in your fat tissue responded to exercise, discovering after eating, adipose fat tissue was busy responding to the meal and exercise didn't stimulate beneficial changes. They say this means that exercising on an empty stomach may provoke more favorable changes in your fat tissue, which could benefit your health in the long term. Findings appear in the journal American Journal of Physiology, Endocrinology, and Metabolism. Blood tests to diagnose and monitor rheumatoid arthritis may be thrown off by obesity in women. Researchers say physicians typically check the blood levels of 2 proteins to check the severity of inflammation in rheumatoid arthritis patients. Findings show the higher a woman's body mass index was, the higher her levels of one of those proteins were in her body. But for men, it was the opposite. The findings may help improve the understanding of the link between weight and inflammation. All right, coming up, we've got Scott. He's on the weather wall for you.
The start of next week.
All right, I don't like that. Bring back winter.
I know, maybe for festival we'll get some cooler air back in the mix.
Hopefully so. We got Boudin Festival coming up, then we got Festival International. We need some good air.
Yeah, we need colder air.
All right, coming up next in sports with talented Jay Russ. Not sure about that, but Mic'd Up Monday brings us to the land of the Como Spartans. Full story after the break.
For
We're
that,
not liking
softball.
Right. So much for the cool air. It's gone.
So much for me tomorrow, reporting at night.
You'll be
All right,
okay.
Thanks, Scott, and thank you for joining us tonight. For updates on news and weather, head to our website, KADN.com. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 9. Have a good night.